The final days of IndyCar preparation before the 2021 season are upon us. Chip Ganassi Racing, along with their new driver Jimmie Johnson, logged their final allowed day of testing prior to the IndyCar season opener in April yesterday, appropriately at the Barber Motorsports Park, where of course the season will open on April 18th. There's still a lot to talk about, not just about testing in IndyCar, so let's get into it. On Monday, Peretta Autosport announced their first sponsor for this year's Indianapolis 500, Moneyline. Now, you might remember them from Team Penske NASCAR sponsorships in previous years, and it doesn't take much of a stretch to imagine that Penske had a significant influence on this signing. After all, the car and crew for this operation come directly from the Team Penske shop in North Carolina. Top Gun Racing is for real. When we're talking about the Indy 500 entry list, I've left them on there pretty much since the beginning, though I've doubted them significantly. I'm hoping to eat some crow, though there's still a long way to go for this team. A great IndyStar article written by Nathan Brown, the link will be in the description, gave us some more details on this team. Now, as I had shown you previously, they have two brand new Dallara chassis. And the interesting tidbit from this article is that they do not plan on using any form of a technical alliance with any existing teams to prepare for the race. This is going to be all done in-house at Top Gun Racing. Now, in the article, they claim that they were going to race in last year's Indianapolis 500, as we had actually talked about on this channel as well. But the sponsor they had then, and apparently have for this race, required fans to be in attendance, so that team ultimately fell through last year due to the fact that the sponsorship needed fans to be there. It seems like fans are absolutely going to be there, and in probably pretty big numbers for this team to come together. But there's a lot of talk in the article about Gary Trout, the owner, talking with Mark Miles and Roger Penske. It seems to be going in a good direction. Now, we did also receive confirmation of something that we've known for a very long time, which is that R.C. Anderson is the scheduled driver. He would be a rookie at the Indianapolis 500, but he's not a rookie to IndyCar competition. Has run races in the past, though again, not on super speedways. And the key information is still kind of floating out in the world right now, which we don't know, which are exactly what the sponsor for this operation is. The speculation, well, perhaps more than speculation, because we have seen posts from Trout himself talking about the Blue Angels in the U.S. Navy. It's reasonable to assume that it would be the U.S. Navy, but we have not had that confirmed yet. We also have no engine manufacturer confirmed for this entry as of right now. Now, this is not directly related to IndyCar, but it obviously has implications for the month of May, as you've just heard, with Top Gun Racing needing fans in the stands for their sponsor. And the Texas Rangers announced today that their opening day will open up to 100% capacity. That will be over potentially 40,000 fans if they sell all of the tickets. That's on April 5th. Now, obviously, I need to state this, which is the important key. Texas is a state that opened up 100% last week. There are no statewide COVID-19 restrictions anymore in Texas. But the important point is that stadiums opening up to 100% in other states might help a 500 that will almost certainly be at some sort of a reduced capacity, whether that's 25, 55, 75%. As long as it's reduced, that will likely, having other stadiums at 100%, shield the Indy 500 from some of the optics issues they faced last year, which ultimately led to the 500 running with no spectators at all. And finally, Chip Ganassi Racing was testing for their final allowed day at Barber Motorsports Park. And here's how the Chip Ganassi team shook out against one another. Now, Scott Dixon, no real surprise there. He did the fewest amount of laps and set the fastest lap time. Just a little bit behind, but relatively close, within 0.2 of a second. Alex Palou, Marcus Ericsson was third, and Jimmie the Juggernaut Johnson. I always love calling him that. Big meme video back in the day, or a trolling video. Great, I would recommend checking it out. Did 168 laps total in testing. Obviously, Jimmie's really pounding the pavement, really putting a lot of workload in with the new Carvana scheme, as well as you can see kind of the dark purple with the light blue and the yellow. But still, Jimmie is not on the pace of Scott Dixon. And again, you know, the expectation is that he's not going to be there right now. He's close. I think a lot closer than a lot of stock car guys would be at this point in their careers. And again, I will stress that I do think Jimmie will improve throughout the season, but don't expect him to be competitive right off of the bat. I think if you're going in with any kind of that expectation, you're going to be disappointed. Now, obviously, Chip Ganassi Racing tested separately from the rest of the IndyCar field. There was a big test a couple of weeks ago at Barber where a bunch of teams were there. Now, the lap times themselves do not compare. It seems like the conditions were much better for the Ganassi private test in Barber versus the full field test. But what I've done is a little bit something different. Rinus VeeKay led the previous test. And so what I have done here is try to give you guys some sort of a relative idea of where everybody's kind of stacking up. So I kind of assumed that if everybody was on the level playing field and running at the same time, Scott Dixon and Rinus VeeKay would have been very close on lap time, if not absolutely even. Or at the very least, they would be the front row if we were qualifying for the race. So what you're seeing here is a combined chart of how far off each car was from the leading car in their session. And hopefully it'll give us a little bit of an idea where the field is stacking up. Now, of course, some teams have not tested at Barber yet, this year anyway, which are Andretti Autosport, McLaren, Aero McLaren SP, and Carlin. But we have most of the field here, so we can draw a few conclusions, I think. So as you can see, Alex Palou actually drops from his second place only in the Ganassi stable to fifth once you get VeeKay, Bourdais, and Rahal there. They're all, VeeKay, Bourdais, and Rahal were very close in their testing times a couple of weeks ago. Then you get to the first of the Penske cars, Will Power, and the Penske cars are one to watch here because I've heard a lot of chatter, not a lot of chatter, but there has been some chatter based on the Penske testing times that maybe they're sandbagging a little bit, which is kind of interesting. I've heard that from multiple people, so we're going to have to kind of see where that is kind of headed as we get into the point where it starts actually paying to go fast. Marcus Ericsson, as you can see, drops to 7th, about half a second off of the top time in his session. And then you see the glut of Penske cars there with Newgarden, McLaughlin, and Pagenaud. And this is kind of where people start to scratch their heads and think about that, because I definitely will tell you that I think Joseph Newgarden has not been showing very much of what he's got in testing so far, and quite frankly, he doesn't have to. I think he's absolutely on top of his game, and I think once we get to Barber for real in April, I think he's going to be right up there. And then we get to this last page here, and this is kind of where we're going to need to talk about Jimmie Johnson, because as you can see, Romain Grosjean is also down there. He improved pretty dramatically once they got to Laguna Seca, but also if you look at his teammate Ed Jones, it looks like the Coyne team wasn't particularly on the pace at the Barber test versus Laguna Seca. So really only 1/10 between the Dale Coyne cars is probably representative of how fast those cars are at Barber Motorsports Park. But as you can see, about 0.4 of a second would be about where Jimmie Johnson would probably fall off of the last place person right now. Now that's better than he had been. In fact, the first time he came and tested in November at Barber Motorsports Park, he was some 2 seconds off of the outright pace and about 1.5 seconds off of the next slowest driver, who was Marco Andretti. So Jimmie has definitely improved. There's no doubt about it, and I believe he will continue to improve. Now, granted, a lot of his testing times this offseason, especially recently, have begun to kind of fall around that 1 to 1.5 seconds off of the outright pace. I certainly don't think he's going to be a moving chicane, and it's certainly, if you look at how many laps he's run, I mean, God almighty, he ran more laps than everybody by a pretty substantial margin. He's definitely going to be in race shape, and we're just going to have to see how quickly he picks it up. Remember, testing is totally different than racing, and we know that Jimmie Johnson is an all-time great racing driver. So if you're a Jimmie Johnson fan, I wouldn't worry too much right now. He is going to keep learning, he is going to keep picking this up, and he will get faster. But right now, do not expect him to be anywhere but the back, at least in qualifying, outright pace, at the very beginning of the season. It's going to take him a while. It's going to be a process, but I think it's going to be a process that will ultimately be rewarding for Jimmie Johnson. So, thank you guys so much for watching this. Let me know what you think of this kind of data analysis. Do you think it's interesting? I just wanted to give you guys, it's certainly not mathematical by any stretch of the imagination. I just wanted to give you guys a sense of kind of where relatively the cars are stacking up against one another and the drivers are stacking up against one another. Of course, again, it doesn't matter until the pay window opens, and the pay windows open at April 18th in Barber Motorsports Park. Can't wait to cover that event for you guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. This has been David Land on YouTube. Subscribe for more motorsport content, and I will see you in the next video.